All right, good evening and welcome to the final TOEFL seminar. And we're going to get started. Now, I want to ask you, great. I want to ask you, is there anyone new today from is there anyone who wasn't here last week that's here today? Because I don't want to repeat myself. I want to get straight into it if there's no one new. Is there anyone new who didn't attend last week? I can skip some of this methodology discussion, or I could cover it very briefly in a minute or so. Okay, I'll assume nobody is new. So just to let you know, especially in this essay, the task 2, we are going to look at, thank you, Adina. We're going to look at I've identified skills within the essay that are important not only for the IELTS, but also for success at university. Again, my perspective is different in that I'm teaching writing at university, so I'm seeing it from both sides, and I know the importance of teaching for skill and not just score. So that's going to be reflected very clearly in this one, because there'll be a few of these aspects of the essay you might ask, well, no one's ever taught it like this. Well, I'm doing it for a reason, because these are areas that in university students are typically weak, or at least they need to be strong in. All right, we're going to look at the writing test 2, obviously, and you can focus on the second part, test 2. You will notice it's twice as long. There's a lot of writing in the independent essay, and it's reflected in the length, the amount of time you're given, which is 30 minutes. Automatic counting, no need to count all 300 words, and it's timed separately, so you don't have to worry about switching tests, and most people will take it on the computer. All right, the scoring, again, is a little bit unclear. We know that it's converted, and then we have a scale of 30 for the writing, and so how that actually configures, we don't know, so there's no point speculating on it here. So let's get right into the independent task, okay? There are, so let's look at how the essay is graded. Now, I've underlined the areas that you can make errors or have like a slightly less than perfect essay, and this is where the underlined parts are. Some points may not be fully elaborated. It's very similar to the integrated essay, actually. It may contain occasional redundancy. Redundancy is when you repeat something over and over. A digression is when you like move from the main topic to something less important, or an unclear connection. And if we look below, occasional noticeable minor errors in structure, word form, and use of idiomatic language that do not interfere with meaning. So you'll have a little structure, or you have a few problems, but the meaning is still clear. And that's to get a 4 out of 5. Now, my impression, as I've looked through tests that have been marked, is that you can make more errors as such. If you count them all, there might be more errors in the TOEFL than the IELTS, and you can still get a higher mark if you're understood and you address the main aspects of the task. So if you're teaching students, you want them to address the main aspects, and you want to, above all, ask yourself, especially with students who are struggling, all right, is their message clear? Do I understand what they're saying? Because if you're understandable, they have a chance to judge you, but at least, honestly, to get a 4. But if you're not understandable, it's hard to get, I think, a 3 or lower. So you want to at least be clear, and then you can start to worry about some of the errors, but clarity or understanding is key. All right. Key points to remember. Now I want to, let me just make sure, yeah, key points to remember. All of these are important, so I want to go through these. An essay, this is an essay that states an opinion or a choice and then explains it. Last week, we didn't want your opinion. We wanted an assessment of what you saw, or a summary or reflection. I mean a reflection of what you saw, not your own reflection. This time we want your own opinion. What's your opinion? Make a choice and explain why you did. Responses are evaluated by 3 different raters. 30 minutes to complete. Length at least 300 words we've talked about. Often questions, in fact, almost all of them appear in one of the following manners. Do you agree or disagree? Would you prefer this or that? Which would you prefer? Or do you support or oppose this idea? All right, do we have any questions about this slide? Let's move on. Example questions. Okay, so these are 3 example questions, and let's look at them. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? A teacher's ability to relate well with students is more important than excellent knowledge of the subject being taught. So that's a sample question. Here's a different type of question. Some people like to travel with a companion. Other people prefer to travel alone. Which do you prefer? And that's the one we're going to look at actually as an example. And then question 3. It has been recently announced that a new restaurant may be built in your neighborhood. Do you support or oppose this plan? So these are the 3 main types of questions. And you can look in your booklet for other bits of information on the types of questions. All right, I will move on, assuming there's no question. Here's what we're going to look at today in the essay. Components of a successful essay include the thesis, and this is in order actually. The first 2 are in order. Thesis statement, that is to say the main idea of the essay. Topic sentences are those sentences which support the thesis statement, and in this bigger essay we'll probably have 3, possibly 4 body paragraphs, and topic sentences go at the beginning of each of these paragraphs. And then the 3rd and 4th components can be mixed or alternated depending on how you feel at the time. But I put the 3rd one as context, which is to finish the introduction, and that means to state a first sentence. You want a first sentence, and then you want your thesis statement. So introductions can be, well, they can be actually in this essay 3 or 4 sentences, but I'm concerned in the beginning to get the thesis statement, what you believe, and then later we'll fill in the introduction. That's where this comes in, and I'll explain why we do it in this order. And then number 4, fill in each paragraph. So fill in all the information below the topic sentences. And you could have this 3rd and context or introduction 4th, that's fine. And then finally, conclusion. And the conclusion should be slightly different from the introduction, which I will talk about at near the conclusion of this webinar. All right, making a thesis statement. Let's talk about what a thesis statement is. It's another word for a main idea. It's another idea. It expresses the main idea. It is 1 sentence. It generally makes 1 point, so you state your opinion. It's not, you don't state more than 1 opinion for the most part. It makes it really difficult to write an essay if you have 2 opinions. So 1 main idea. And for this essay, you answer the question directly. Whatever the question is, you answer it directly. And you use the information in the question to build your thesis statement. Now, I know there's always questions about, well, how much of the introduction or the question can I put in the thesis statement? Don't I want to show originality? You can show originality, but you want to keep the core concepts the same so the reader isn't, or the examiner isn't confused. So if it's more difficult to put in your own words concepts that are very specific. So specific concepts you want to keep the same. Verbs can be exchanged in many cases. Adjectives can also be exchanged. But this is the thesis statement. We're talking about the thesis statement. If you look at the title of the slide, it's the thesis statement. We'll talk about topic sentences next. And the thesis statement is the main sentence of the introduction. That's right. It's the statement in the introduction. It is generally near the bottom of the introduction, and it states the main idea for the whole essay. All right. Find your main idea. This should take 1 or 2 minutes. It should not take long to decide what position you want to take. Yes, you have to express it in the main, in the thesis statement. So we're gonna look at 3 examples here, Irina. So here are 3 examples. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? A teacher's ability. We've already read this, so I don't need to repeat it. You can see, is it more important the relationship or the knowledge of the subject? And I put a teacher's ability to relate with a student is more important. I put that I don't agree with this statement. And then I have a second sentence that elaborates upon my very short or terse, it's a great word, terse thesis statement. Terse is short. So I do not agree with this statement, and then I elaborate upon it, and then what I mean in the next sentence. Empty words spoken with a smile produce no transference of knowledge. Competence is crucial or is important. It's rare to answer it in 3 parts, but I did on that occasion. Some people like to travel with a companion, others don't. Which do you prefer? I prefer traveling alone. That's the thesis statement, and that should be in the introduction, preferably near the end of the introduction. Makes most sense. Finally, it has recently been announced that a new restaurant may be built in your neighborhood. Do you support or oppose this plan? I support having a new restaurant in my neighborhood. Or, I think having a new restaurant in my neighborhood is a good idea. Yeah, in these cases, they want you, look at number 1, question 1. Do you agree or disagree? So you got to let us know. There's nothing in the middle. No, they don't want a balance. They're not asking for a disagreement and agreement. They want to know, do you agree or disagree? Number 2, which do you prefer? 1 choice. Choose 1 option and go with it. Number 3, do you support or oppose? You either support or you oppose, and then you explain why you support or why you oppose. You don't need to write about both, because that's not what the question's asking. Answer the question. Whatever the question is, answer it. That's I think the easiest rule to follow. Now, there will be some that say, I know that in the IELTS, I think, give the advantages and disadvantages and then state your opinion. There aren't many of those in the TOEFL. Do we have any questions about this? So yes, exactly. So when we talk about main ideas, if we're monitoring the student, it should not take long to make their mind up and write 1 sentence. So it doesn't matter if they support or oppose it. They're not graded on the merits of their argument as such. It's because both will be fine. It's just that you don't want to lose a lot of time on this section. All right. I want to this is where skill comes in. I want to, for those of you who will be teaching this, I want to just make a comment about the different types of thesis statements, because I think that not all thesis statements are the same, and that some are inherently is a great word. Inherently means like from DNA, inherently better than others. So here we have, we're going to look at this in more detail. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Grading students should be optional. I believe that students should be graded in school. Now, here's where we use the exact same wording, students graded. Now, if we want to use different words, I think it's a little bit better in this case because none of these words is particular. All of these words can be substituted. So I believe that students should be formally assessed in school. Assessed, I think, is a higher quality word. I think it's more formal. I think it's more interesting. And it shows that you have a rather large lexicon, I suppose. I believe that students should be formally assessed in school as grades encourage learning. Now, here is even a more advanced thesis statement, because not only have we told the examiner what we believe, we've also given them a clue with the last phrase that's underlined. We've also given them a clue about how we're going to argue the essay. And if we stick to this, if we're faithful to what we've written in the introduction in this thesis statement, then it's very powerful. If we don't follow what we've written, then we've sort of misled the examiner. This for me is a skill. I'm not sure the examiners will take off for this, but this is a skill that's really helpful once you get to university, and it's one that you want to know. So if you can provide a little bit of a clue as to how you're going to argue in the thesis statement, I think it earns more points. I think it's a much more difficult task. Continuous assessment, yes. All right, let's move on. All right, so we're moving on from the thesis statement. And we're going to move on. I'm going to do an in-class writing. Would you like an in-class? Actually, let me ask you, would you like to do one thesis statement on your own? Would you guys like to try it? Or is it rather clear enough that we don't need to? I thought it was a little bit too, I think most of us understand it. Who would like to? It's pretty clear. Let's take a vote. No. Uh-oh. It's clear. The clears are slightly winning. Now, here's what we're going to do. Don't worry. I'll give you homework. You'll have one essay. By the way, I want to talk about homework. This week is the worst week of my semester. I am a supervisor of essays, these bachelor theses, and June 1st is the deadline. So I have no time to grade your essays. I'll do it after June 1st, and I beg, this is a great phrase, by the way, I beg your indulgence in this matter. I beg your indulgence in this matter because I've just had no time. I'm literally working night and day. So I will read all of your essays. Thank you for the homework. But I haven't had time. So I will give you homework. I'll assess your thesis statement then. Let's go to topic sentences. They develop from the thesis statement, and they should be logically supporting the thesis statement. I think that's clear enough. In general, there'll be 3 of them. We've talked about it last week, 3 of these, or 4. It's a long essay. If you have short paragraphs, then you might need 4 topic sentences. All right, so what we want to do is in the green is what we've already talked about. That's the thesis statement. I prefer traveling alone. The question is above. We've already looked at it. So what I generally have students do is take notes on, all right, what are your main ideas going to be? And get them in note form. Then you can turn them into sentences. But what we need first of all is a structure. Without a structure, students begin to panic, and we don't want panic. Once we have a structure, then students can relax because we more or less know what we're going to say. And I've written down 3 ideas. I prefer to travel alone. Why? And you just ask them, ask the students why, and then write those reasons. Because of this, because of this, because of this. So why? Flexible schedule. I create my own schedule. Number 2, I do only what I want to enjoy. I don't have to accommodate anyone else. And thirdly, deeper cultural encounters. If I'm with my friend, I don't get involved as much in the local culture. So these are the 3 ideas that I want to focus on. Once you have this, honestly, I think students can not relax in the sense that you don't concentrate and keep working. But this now we can relax that we know more or less what we're going to say. So I think getting the outline, I put 5 minutes. I think that's very generous. You should be able to do this in 3 minutes, but I know students sometimes have difficulties coming up with reasons. Now, I think that for most of you, if you're doing younger students like grade 9 or 10, even older actually, then we have to practice this step and time them. Okay, here's your thesis statement. Come up with 3 logical supporting ideas that will be the core of your topic sentences, and then time them. Now, if they say, I don't know, and you're going to have students do this, I have it all the time, or did, I don't know, I can only think of 2 things, I can only think of 1, then this is where we have to teach them how to teach themselves to open their mind. So here we teach through questions. I'll say it again. We teach through questions because we want them in the exam, when they freeze up, to ask these questions to themselves. Yes, exactly. Supporting ideas. That's right. So they're going to ask, I don't know what to say. I don't know. I can only think of 2. So ask yourself, okay, if you can't think of why you want to travel alone, then think of the opposite. What were the problems you encountered when you traveled with others? And then when you identify a problem, then just the opposite of that is going to be a reason to travel alone. So one of the problems is that people were always late. Well, if you're alone, then no one's late, which means late refers to schedule, which means you have a flexible schedule. Great. We couldn't decide on the right restaurant. So think in terms of opposite that way. Other ways to sort of get people or students to think is to have them dwell on their own experiences. Don't think abstractly. Ask them about their own holidays and imagine what it would be like alone. If they've traveled alone, it's even better. If they're too young to travel alone, it's understandable. They won't have this experience, but then think about their parents or others who've traveled and try to live vicariously through them. All right, do we have any questions about this? This one I think will take a bit of teaching moment. I think it's easy for us, but I just want to make it the point that you will have to teach this section because a lot of students, as you probably already know, will not be able to think of 3. They'll only be able to think of 2, perhaps. All right. Make an outline. So that's the first part of the outline. This part here should take just the 3 flexible schedule, do what you enjoy, deepen cultural encounters, perhaps a minute or 2 maximum. I mean, it shouldn't take long. This is not it. Now, number 3, then the make an outline. This is where you take those ideas and you turn them into complete sentences. Complete sentences. So what I've done is I've taken these ideas, the flexible schedule, do what you enjoy, deeper cultural encounters, and I've taken, I have them here. I've turned them into sentences. Now the first sentence under each of the black, that's the sentence. So flexible schedule, the first sentence in the first paragraph of the body will be, I decide where to go and how long to be there. And then the second line is not a sentence, it's just that I will give examples from my travels or from other people's travels or from your imaginary travels. Imagine what it's like to travel alone. It's not difficult to imagine that since most of us have been on holiday. Do what you enjoy. Okay, I choose the sentence, I choose my favorite activities. Now, that's a full sentence. No compromising can be an idea that I will incorporate in the paragraph. And then I'll give examples from my travels. I'll talk about that the second part of this later. Deeper cultural encounters. It forces me, or traveling alone forces me to interact more with locals. And then I can discuss, and then what I'll talk about later, I know what I'm going to talk about, so I'll mention it now, discuss their views, culture, visit less touristic places, learn the language. This is obviously a big interest. If you're with your friends, you're not going to learn the language. If you're only with locals, you learn to speak, if you want to or need to, the local language faster. Okay, so Irina has said, can we write about alternative opinion, like, although others prefer trialing groups, I still think, yeah, you can do that as an introduction, in the introduction. And then I still think that will be your thesis statement. And the first part can be an introduction. Do we need to write a topic sentence like, this gives me a flexible schedule, and then develop it? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm very sorry. This is a complete outline. So the flexible schedule, and then I'm very sorry about this. I'm thinking too quickly ahead. So let me back up, and I hope we can erase the tape on the webinar. Oksana, astutely, you are absolutely correct. So what I've done is I have the topic sentence idea, and then I quickly write more or less in a skeleton what I'm going to talk about. Flexible schedule, and then what's the benefit of a flexible schedule? Deciding where to go, and then I'll give a specific example. Many apologies for this. Do what you enjoy is the topic sentence idea, and then what's a few ideas under that? I want to sketch out as many of the ideas as I can, because then once I get to the writing stage, I can just literally type it out. It won't take very long. Deeper cultural encounters. Why? Because it forces me to, okay, you understand. And so now we have a skeleton of the whole essay in 5 minutes, or around 5 minutes. This should not take very long. Okay, so 5 to 6 minutes, you did 1 to 2 minutes, so you have 8 minutes, which gives you 22 minutes to essentially, well, about 20 minutes to flush this out and 2 minutes to proofread it. Thank you, Oksana. Oh my goodness. It's been a long day. No, it's fine. I'm fresh. Let's begin. Let's continue if there are no questions. All right, developing context. Now, context is that first part of the introduction before the thesis statement. And why is it important? It's important for 2 reasons. It's important on the TOEFL exam because there's an expression in English, and I'm sure it's an expression in most languages, you only have one time to make a good first impression. And the first impression is developed in the first sentence. How you create that first sentence will indicate to the examiner whether they do this, oh, another one of these, or whether they do, oh, that's different. So that's why I do it. And secondly, this is a great skill that if you can learn will help you not only in academic writing at university, but in any presentation you make and in your career, subsequent career. So your first impression, this is really good. And so essentially what we want to do is create an introduction that no one else is doing, because the examiners are being paid to sit 6 to 8 hours with coffee breaks and lunch to read the same essay over and over. If you have the same, a lot of people teach like a cookie cutter style, like you write this and you write this and you write this and you write this, you use this phrase, they can recognize this. And this is not going to stand out. We want to have something fresh. I'm teaching something, the basics of having something fresh, original with the student. So how do I find an appropriate context for my essay or introduction? Here's the concept of creating this interesting first sentence. First of all, make it larger than the thesis statement. The thesis statement, once again, is the controlling idea for the whole essay. The context or the first sentence is going to be larger than the thesis statement. But you don't prove the context. You just acquaint the reader with what they're about to read. You introduce the topic very gently. And then you go in this sort of funnel shape. You gradually get more detailed. So you make it larger than the thesis statement, but how do you sort of craft this? I'll tell you how I do it, and that's the only way I can teach, really, is I read the thesis statement and I read the 3 or 4 topic sentences, and with all of these, I come up with an interesting first sentence. That's how I do it. It's just, I think you need to practice it. In the beginning, students might read this and think, I don't know what to say, and I will try to help you with that in a minute. All right. Read thesis statement plus 3 sentences. Okay, so here we go. Here's what we want to do. The green we've already done, that's a thesis statement. The topic sentences, now I've written them out of the essay. The first and most obvious advantage is the flexibility you have when traveling alone. Then I've written out the second one, do what you enjoy. Without other travel companions, one can indulge in activities that they love. And then number 3, deeper cultural encounters. Traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals and their culture. Now, if I read all of those, plus I prefer traveling alone, then I came up with this, and I've done it exactly this way. I've read those 4 sentences, and this is what I come up with. Some activities are best done alone. Reading and writing are 2 such activities. Traveling is another. So I've taken, my context is things you do alone. That's how I've gone to it. So I've approached it from that way, and I've talked about reading and writing, and then I've added traveling. And this is interesting, and it's logical, and that's I think one of the reasons it's interesting is because it's logical. Traveling is another. One should travel solo. I don't want to say alone again because I've said it a few times. One should travel solo when taking a holiday. So let me try to break it down on how to teach this. How do we teach it? You can focus on the core elements of these sentences. And let's focus on the thesis sentence. You can focus on me, the person, what things you do alone. That's what I've chosen to do. Or you can focus on traveling, different types of travel. You might want to have that as your introduction. You know, group travels, maybe compare and contrast it with group travels and these sort of, there are lots of group travel sort of events going on that are very popular. So there are 2 ways to approach context. I've approached it in a way that I know is less common. It's a traveling alone. So I ask the question, what are other things I do alone? And I know that very few of the other test takers are going to write this type of introduction. So I'm going to stand out. Most, if they write anything interesting, and very few will write anything interesting, but if they write anything interesting, it'll be up traveling. And I've assured myself that I will be virtually alone, just like on my holiday, with this essay. Do we have any questions about how I've arrived at that? And you'll have a chance to experiment with this in your homework, which I will give you clear feedback on after June 1st. All right. All right, let's move to how to fill out body paragraphs. Now, here's where I'm going to let you participate. I'm going to have all of you write a paragraph, and I want to see it. But I want to talk about it first. Here we go. We have this, the structure of each body paragraph, and in fact, even the introduction, should be from general to specific, from general to specific. So in the case of the body paragraphs, the topic sentence is the most general sentence. Then we have supporting statements, which are slightly narrower, and then the example. Now I want to talk just for a minute about examples, because there are 2 ways to grab the attention of the examiner. The first way to grab the attention of the examiner is the very first sentence of the essay. I've just been talking about that. Make it interesting, catchy, original. The second way to grab the attention of the reader, of the examiner, is to paint or write very clear examples. Examples enliven the text. I'm going to write this word enliven because it's a great word. Enliven the text. Examples enliven the text. It gives it life. This is the oxygen which allows a story to breathe. In fact, without examples, you don't have a story. And if you can paint a story in the examiner's mind, you've captivated them, and this will almost certainly render a higher score. Oh, thank you, Anna. So it will almost certainly render a higher score. So what I'm saying is that we start general, we get more specific, and then if we can come up with a specific example, it's the best. Then we can then we begin to paint pictures and create something memorable. Well, I don't want to exaggerate, but you understand. Now, here's the question that students are going to have. I don't have an example because I've never traveled alone. So here is the hierarchy of finding examples. Number one, hierarchy is from your own experiences. Students are often too young. They've never traveled alone. Fine. From your friends' experiences. Do you have any best friends or friends that they've traveled alone and they've told you? Maybe you can glean something from them. Glean something from them. Take something from them. Okay, what about your parents? Have they ever traveled alone and talked about their holidays? If none of those work, then we go to the fourth option, which is almost certainly going to work. All the things you've watched on YouTube and Netflix. You've definitely seen movies where people are on holiday, perhaps alone. So what have you seen from someone else's life that you don't know that you can derive from? And finally, if they don't watch movies, let's paint the worst case scenario. If they don't watch movies, worst case scenario is also quite nice. The worst case scenario, then we invent it. Because guess what? There's no ethical standard. You don't have to sign an oath of honesty. You can make it up. I don't have a problem with making it up, but my general impression, my general experience has been that if students aren't creative enough to glean experiences from either themselves or friends or family, or from the television, they're probably not going to be so successful at making something up. But that's the fifth and final option. Well, the sixth option is don't write an example. And that will actually be used if students are taking too much time. Do not take a lot of time. This should take all of this computation, level 1, 2, 3, 4, all going through level 5 to find an example should take 10 or 15 seconds maximum. I mean, it shouldn't take long. Your mind is very quick. But that's what we want to aim at, this inverted triangle. All right, write a full draft. I'm going to say 15 minutes. It can be 18 minutes. Once you have the outline, that I've just showed you two. Here's the outline right here. You can just write it out. Now, here's what I do, and if we have time at the end and I write something, I'll show you. My first draft has a lot of mistakes, but I make sure that I have time at the end to read it. My most important thing is getting it all written, because you cannot score well at all if you don't finish. So write it out. Oh, is it glean? Sorry, E-A-N. Thank you. Thank you. Write it out. Don't worry, and this is where it's going to be a little problem with the perfectionists. You're going to have perfectionists where they don't want to move on until they've fixed everything in the sentence. If that's really how students work, then I go with the flow. We want to work to how students are naturally sort of inclined to work. But all things being equal, we want to get the draft out, because here's what I see happen is they try to be perfect along the way, and then they find themselves with a paragraph and a conclusion to write and 2 minutes to go. And then they panic and they write poorly at the end. So if you get it out it gives a psychological advantage that worst case scenario, I have an essay and now I can make it better. And I've got hopefully, about 3 or 4 minutes. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure what Irina is talking about. Irina, are you okay? The point is to get your ideas on the paper. This gives you time to edit. Okay, great. Do we have any questions about this? All right, I'm going to fill in one paragraph, and then I want you all to fill in another one, and I'll give you some comments. So, on flexible schedule, the first and most obvious advantage is the flexibility one has when traveling alone. One determines, or you can say a person determines, or what time to get up, where to go, and how long to stay there. Now, I want to just talk about this sentence, because what we're always trying to do at all points in the essay is grab the examiner's attention. And I've grabbed their attention, not with the first sentence, because it's not an amazing discovery. It's clear, which is fine, but it's not an amazing idea. But sentence 2 is different and interesting. And I want to ask you all why. Why is sentence 2 special? Why could the examiner possibly take note of this? What's going on in number 2 that makes it stand out, perhaps amongst 95, 98%, or 99% of test takers? That's not the reason it stands out. One is just neutral. One is a person determines, you can determine, I determine, you can use I if you want. But what's special about sentence 2? Is anything special? No. It's special. None of the words are special. All of these words are commonplace. They're common. What's special about this is the structure of the sentence, the syntax. What's the structure? What have I done with the structure? What time to get up, where to go, and how long to stay there. That is a sentence that sings because it has this melody to it. It's short, 3. It's not a list like I like apples, pears, and bananas. It's a longer, more sophisticated list, but English is particularly suited for these triplets. So if you can incorporate one of those into your essay, again, I don't want to use this as you have to do it. I did it because it came to me. I had these 3 ideas. But in one sentence, this sentence is special for the structure. What time to get up, where to go, and how long to stay there. That is melodic, and you should be able to hear that, especially if you read it out, speak it aloud. Now, why is this a really interesting, I think, rather positive announcement? Because none of these words is special. They're all normal words, but we've created a special sentence out of normal words because of the structure, and I want you all to pay attention to that. I decided to depart from my plans. I underline that because that's special in a different way. It's not a common way to express it, but it's a very natural way. And I know that to depart from my plans is very few students on the essays are going to write that. So again, this is a second chance to stand out with the examiner. I decided, okay, I remember on my last trip to the Dominican Republic, here's that example I was telling you about, making it personal. I decided to depart from my plans and stay a few extra days in the capital because I met a group of people that I really clicked with. And really clicked with is a phrasal verb that very few people will use, and therefore it's acceptable. Well, you're asking, yes, is the answer, but they're asking for your opinion. So when they're asking for your opinion, I think you're allowed to give your opinion. Yeah, I think you can be chatty. I think it's fine. You can, it doesn't matter. I know that traditional linguists or grammarians actually would say with whom, with a group of people with whom I really clicked, that's fine as well. I have no objection to that. I think in the IELTS and the TOEFL, I think this is plenty. This is fine. You definitely won't get downgraded for this. Yeah, I understand the rule preposition at the end. I don't think they're that strict grammatically, because this is not grammatically incorrect. I just want you to know that. This is not grammatically incorrect. It's grammatically preferred by traditionalists to put it with whom. But I think both can work. Yeah, well, I have to tell you, when I write for my articles professionally, I don't put prepositions at the end. But this is not, these students aren't professional writers, and the standard is not of a professional level. And there's no points lost if you say clicked with or with whom I clicked. You're not losing any points on either option. With whom is old-fashioned. In fact, it's not really. I will use it in academic journals. Occasionally, if I'm giving a real serious speech, but I would, well, if I'm giving a speech that's rather professional, I won't say clicked with. Got on well with is actually also rather informal. But getting back to Marius's point, I wouldn't advocate this. I wouldn't say, okay, fine, chatty language, reach for informal. But if they do it once in a while, I wouldn't discourage it as long as the sentence is clear. What we don't want is slang. We don't want to move into slang. This is slightly informal, but I think it's okay. The structure is different. How's the structure different? I would disagree with that. I'm not sure. I take your point. Clicked with is on the border, but the IELTS and the TOEFL, well, there are differences, but I doubt very seriously you would be downgraded on the IELTS for this. All right. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I get it. I'm confused. Okay. Do we have any questions about this? Now, if we don't like clicked with, what would be a way to write? We could write it differently, because I met a group of people I got along well with. That's more or less the same. Clicked with is interesting because, yeah, it might be a little bit informal. It's a little bit risky. I take your point. I got along well with, in substance, doesn't really change much. That I liked a lot, it's fine. I don't think there's a real formal way of expressing this without sounding awkward, given that I'm talking about my own trip. What is it? What do you mean rigid structure? What does that mean, rigid structure? Well, no, it's not a rigid structure, but remember that the IELTS is 250 words. The TOEFL is 300. That's an extra paragraph. Unless you're writing really long paragraphs, you can't write a TOEFL with 2 body paragraphs. I mean, the paragraphs will be really long. 300 words is 50 words is a significant difference. It's about 1 paragraph. So yeah, you've got to write longer because the requirements are longer. So you have to include an extra paragraph. It's only because of that. I think the structure is basically the same for the most part. All right. No, they don't work out. I find that okay, so here's the problem if you have a really long paragraph. First of all, you've got to keep it all structured. And remember I mentioned this sort of inverted triangle. It's really difficult to keep the flow if it's really long. I just don't think students are prepared for really long paragraphs. And I just think it's a big risk unless you have a really experienced writer to write. And you know, you could add one or two, but what you're essentially asking students is to write at least 2 or 3 more sentences on top of this. So it's really quite long. You're not penalized for a long essay, but this is a long essay, 300 to 350. You don't want to write longer or you will definitely not finish. So you're not penalized, but you are penalized in unofficially or indirectly because you won't be able to finish and proofread it. That's a lot. These are a lot of words. I find it challenging to write 350 and make it cogent. So students want to keep it. I encourage 310, 300. Don't make it any more difficult. The more words, the more possibility of an error. So keep it at 300. You've got a counter. You can see it. So don't give the examiner any more, evidence to lower your grade. Remember, they talk about sporadic errors or, sometimes. So the more you have, the more chance you have to error. All right, what if I can't think of examples from my own life? I've just mentioned the 5 ways that we can think about examples from our own life. Now, I would like you all, if you'd like, to try to do this one. You only have to do 2 or 3 sentences. Just look for a pyramid, nothing long. But let's take the topic sentence, traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals and their culture. Can you maybe make 2 or 3 sentences and finish this? Again, we're looking for this pyramid, inverted pyramid, and preferably in a graphic, an example at the end that sort of paints a picture. Why don't we try that? Now, when you're done, put a plus, and then I'm going to call on you individually to put yours in the box. I don't want everyone pasting their example or I won't be able to see it. So we'll do one at a time and I'll call on you. So why don't you do not write it. Do not paste it in the chat. Only put a plus when you're finished. I will call on you to paste your example and then I'll call on the next one. I'll do it one at a time. Otherwise, it will get very messy. So put a plus when you're finished. All right, Irina, since you're first, everyone keep working, but Irina, I'll talk to you. Why don't you paste yours in the box, and I will talk to you about yours very quickly. Paste it in the chat, copy it in the chat. Oh, okay, go for it. You didn't type. Okay, no problem. Oksana, do you have yours ready? Can you copy it? Irina, wait to copy yours. Oksana, can you copy yours if you have it already typed? Oh, okay. Evgeny, if yours is ready, can you send it? Who's ever ready, send it first. Don't send if you see one. Who's ever ready? Okay, Evgeny, so please, no one else send anything yet. Let me look at his. Okay, traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals in their culture. You will make new friends easier being a solo okay. Being a solo traveler makes it easier to communicate with locals and okay, wait a second. So the first sentence was my sentence. Traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals in their culture. You were supposed to finish that paragraph, and you seem to be repeating it in the middle. So I'm not clear what's happening. Being a solo traveler makes it easier to communicate with locals and make new friends. That's what I wrote in the, okay, so maybe you didn't understand the assignment. I want you to fill in the paragraph, and you've got to keep the same topic sentence. So that won't work. Can I hear someone else? Someone else who's kept the topic sentence, the one that I have. Who's next? Whoever pastes first, I'll look at, and then we'll wait to paste. Okay, Oksana, can you send it? All right. Oh, Irina. Okay, Irina, okay, traveling alone forces a person to interact with, oh goodness. All right, we have the problem. All right, so I will look at, I'll look at Irina's first. You'll make new friends easier. Oh, that is Irina. You can always learn about the country from inside, which means communication with the locals aim to learn about their country. Okay, this is not a clear sentence, Irina. It's not a clear sentence. So you've got to, it's very long. So I suggest you write in a shorter fashion, because the first sentence is very unclear. You can always learn about the country from inside. That's good. Which means communication with locals, that's good. But then the next part is when it starts to get muddled. We say muddled. Muddled comes from mud, a little bit unclear. Aim to learn about maybe learn is the problem. Aim to learn is awkward. So we have to change that phrase. Aim to learn is not natural English. With locals, which means communication with locals to learn. Oh, get rid of aim, to learn about their customs and traditions. Then you're fine. So actually just eliminate aimed and you're fine. Now, let me show you how to get rid of extra words. You can always learn about the country from inside. That's not a clear idea. So, and it doesn't say much. So what you want to is maybe, you want to just maybe get rid of the first part because it doesn't actually say very much. Communication with locals allows you to learn about their traditions and customs. Besides, you may participate in local events like festivals. So good. For instance, as I'm concerned, we don't need as I am concerned. That sentence delete. I'm an independent traveler and it's essential to be immersed. Okay, that is a personal example, but it doesn't give an example to prove it. You're just confirming it by saying that's what I believe. So we need an actual example of this local event. For example, when I was in Marbella, Spain, I witnessed the, when I was in Spain, I witnessed the bull run, which I would have never done with my friends, the running of the bulls in Seville or some of these other cities. That could be an interesting example. But that last doesn't qualify. So honestly, we only have two parts. One sentence besides you may participate in local events like festivals. That's a good sentence. And then the second part of the first one, communication with locals allows you to learn their customs and traditions. Everything else is unclear or unnecessary. So let's look at, and I will help you, Irina, when you write your homework. Staying on your own is, being on your own is what you want to say. Being on your own, you are destined to come across various people due to practical reasons. Okay, this becomes very cluttered. This is not a clear sentence, unfortunately. So let me help you make it clearer. So let me read it. Staying on your own, you are destined to come across various peoples due to practical reasons or when you are willing to find a companion for socializing. That's not English, unfortunately. So let me help you with this. Being on your own forces you to meet other people and find companions for socializing. Does that make sense, Oksana? Being alone forces you to find companions to socialize with. You can even say it in a fewer words. Being alone forces you to find companions, others are in the area to socialize with. Okay, I hope that helps. In this way, you will, I like this, in this way is nice, you will be exposed to the communication with representatives of that country. You don't want to say another country because that could be any country in the world, of that country. Very good. It's very official, but that's fine. Which will definitely help you get to know an alien. We don't say alien culture, a foreign culture or a new culture, but we don't say alien. It can be, some people, you can say it if you're writing books, like literature might say it, but we don't use literary English here. It can be illustrated, no. You don't say it, okay, it can be illustrated by my friend's trip, okay, by my friend's trip to Mexico as a backpacker. On his trip, he acquired so much experience which changed his mindset fully. Okay, great second sentence. It can be illustrated by my friend's trip to Mexico as a backpacker. That's fine. But now we want to go more detail. What you do in this last sentence is what all students are doing, and I want to explain the difference. You haven't painted a picture. You've just reported something. Oh, and it was amazing. There's a difference between reporting it and describing the actual event. So, Oksana, I want to give you an example of the last sentence on the difference between reporting it and actually making it come alive. So it can be illustrated by my friend's trip to Mexico as a backpacker. He spent 4 weeks in the south of Spain. I'm sorry, is it Mexico? Sorry, in the south of Mexico. In the south, we know it's Mexico because they've just met in the south. Hitchhiking, which is very dangerous in the south of Mexico, don't do it. Hitchhiking from city to city, meeting locals along the way. Here we go. Look at that. Oksana, do you see how that's a specific example of your hitchhiker friend? And now suddenly we can think about somebody hitchhiking. I have a picture of that and someone picking him up and another person picking them up. This is where now examples become real. Does everyone see that? Okay, great. Now, okay, no one sent any more because I see that all right, so let's look at Marios's. And hopefully we can all learn from this. Traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals and their culture. Not having a traveling companion makes you more mindful of your surroundings and eager to delve into the local culture. Great, Mario's really nice sentence. And as an examiner, this is what I noticed. Delve into, great. Now, I can't say, what is it again? Clicked with, but Mario's can say delved into. Life is unfair. I'm joking. Okay, this is really good for several reasons. Not having a traveling companion is it's a rather unusual. This is a subject phrase or clause. So it's a subjectival phrase, which then is used, and then it accompanies the verb makes. This is unusual. It's risky for young students because they normally don't do it well, but Marios has done it very well. Great job. Not having a travel companion makes you more mindful. Mindful is a really good word. I note that. Students aren't using that as much. Of your surroundings and eager to delve into. Great. So 3 things I've noticed. So I'm trying to talk out loud because I want you to notice some of the same things. These are unusual, and what will help in little ways help the essay stand out. An unusual subject phrase, I think it's a clause actually, and then a phrase, and then we have mindful, and then delve into. The less distracted you are by mindless conversations with a friend, comma, now we have lovely structure. This is another way that Marios is sort of standing out. Now we have a very advanced structure. The more, the less, the more, the more, the less. The more likely it is that you will take the time to make an attempt to utter a few words in the local language and invest time to get to know the locals. Now, this is a long sentence and it's risky, but in this case, it works because it flows and it's logical and it's fine. While traveling deep in Russia alone, I was blessed with blessed is a great word. We all want to be blessed. This paragraph is blessed by Marios, who's done a great job. While traveling alone, I was blessed with the opportunity to have deeper conversations with locals, appreciate their insights, and even he's done a triplet there. A quick learn, that's amazing. And even get invited to dine with a random truck driver at his own house. Wow. That's a 9+, Marios. It's off the scale. So many things done well there. I think everyone should look at that. This is really well done because the structure is interesting and it's varied. Some of the word choices are unusual, peculiar, utter, mindful, delve into. The triplet is beautiful style. You don't see elegance in that manner in an IELTS or TOEFL very often. And then the example at the end is the clincher. And I'm going to write clincher down because this is a great word. It's the clincher. It now paints a picture. And now I'm hooked. My gosh, what happened? What'd you guys talk about at dinner? So Marius, great job. Really great job. All right, let's hear. Is there anyone else that you like? Anyone? Okay, good. Oksana is next. Traveling alone forces a person to interact with locals and their culture. I believe this is the only way one can get exposed to a different culture and enjoy its peculiarities. Very clear, clean. I'm gonna describe Oksana's writing different than Mario's because it's different. This is clean writing. This is very clean, which is great. Clean writing means it's understandable, and that will almost always mean very good style. So this is a different style than Mario's. Marius is more intricate. He writes in a more, I'll say, sophisticated way, but I don't mean that Oksana is less sophisticated, because this style of clean, clear prose is highly valued by me and should be by the examiners. And she uses a very nice word, peculiarities, and she spells it correctly. Thank you, Microsoft Word spell check. I'm joking. Okay, one of the best memories Or one of my best memories is connected with my solo trip to Morocco, where I married, no, oh, that's wrong. I'm creating new stories, sorry, where I met many wonderful local people. Now wait, I would have never had this rare occasion if I had traveled, a slight error, but it's so difficult because it's conditional, third conditional, if I had traveled with my friends or family. Now, this is really good, but I want to make one slight amendment to Oksana's very clear writing. Oksana, I like your style. Keep your style. This is why I love teaching writing, because everyone has a different style, and it's like a personality when you speak. So everyone has a different style, and it's akin to a different personality. So Oksana, I'm already forming a picture of what Oksana's like based on her writing. Mario's the same. So let's look at this for a moment. The last sentence is what I want to focus on, because I think it went from a very, very great sentence, a paragraph, to a great. Now, if you would have changed that last sentence, you started to go into an example and then stopped. You've given an example, my solo trip to Morocco, where I met many wonderful people, but I would love an example of what happened. Now, if students don't have time to think of this, that's fine, but I'm trying to give you the counsel of perfection. I'm going to write this down because I love this phrase. The counsel of perfection means this is in a perfect world, this is what we should do. Obviously, in exam time, we might not have the opportunity to be this perfect, but let me just show you what I might do in the last sentence to really make this a home run. Okay, with my solo trip to Morocco, where I met many wonderful local people. Oh, this is where we really start to sing. One encounter in particular resides in my memory. I'm gonna really make bravado. I want the examiners to listen to my essay, read my essay. Watch this. Will reside in my memory forever. And they're like, oh my gosh, what? Will reside in my memory forever. So I met, watch this, alone, penniless. Now, I'm making this up, and I apologize. Don't teach your children to lie, but I'm just going to make this up because I've never been to Morocco, and I wasn't, and Oksana's not told me about this. The unforgettable shaman will reside forever. Great. Boom, that's it. That's it. That's enough. That's enough. Great. So I won't need to write mine. Thank you, Oksana. Perfect. Does someone else want to give their example? Are these helpful when I speak out loud about your paragraphs? Again, I want to be complimentary and critical because there are good and bad, poor, there are always strengths in every student's essay. Okay, anyone else want to let me comment on theirs, or do we want to move on? My pleasure, Oksana. I don't even know how many people are in the room. Does anyone else want to? I assume no. All right, I assume we're a bit shy. So you can write homework, that's fine. All right, let's move on. How to create interesting conclusions. All right. It's the same concept that I use, the same structure, formula, theory that I use for the first sentence of the introduction, except I expand it. I essentially read, I don't have it here, I read the thesis statement, but actually the whole introduction, and then the topic sentences, and then I have a full idea. This is only it's only 7 sentences. It doesn't take a long time, 6, 7 sentences. Then I have an idea of how to craft the conclusion, because what we don't want, as you see on the right, is the best conclusions. We don't want to copy the introduction. The best conclusions describe the content in a slightly different but no less accurate manner. And that's the key. This is yet another way to shine if you have this sort of creative, and time, of course, and it will come more naturally the more you write. But this ability to create an interesting conclusion, 99.5 or 99.9, even the nines that I read have boring conclusions. So nines, yeah, almost no one writes an interesting conclusion, which is why I see it as an opportunity to shine. So look at moments where you can shine. And these are moments where you can shine. That first sentence, clear, vivid examples, and the conclusion, because no one pays attention to conclusions. Hopefully the examiner does, and they read all the way through it. There's no guarantee that happens, unfortunately, but we have to assume they do. All right, so let's take a look at how I did this. I love conclusions, by the way. They might be my favorite part of the whole writing experience. And I want to tell you why. Is because it's your one last chance to say it slightly differently and make it memorable. Now, there's a learning point here in what I've just said, and it's not the learning point you're thinking. The learning point is this. I just mentioned to you that I love writing conclusions. Now, if you love to do something, you're excited about it, and everyone knows about it. So what you have to do as a teacher is find something in this TOEFL writing process that you love, or that you like. Maybe love is too strong. That you like, and that's where you build the energy and the excitement that you give to the kids. Because the truth of the matter is, your students reflect your attitude. At MGIMO, I teach writing. Even students who didn't like writing are giving their 100% best effort because I love it so much. They don't have a choice. I'm excited about it every time I meet, because I'm writing as a, this is my craft. I'm writing, as a profession. I was hired at MGIMO because I'm a published historian. So I was hired to publish. I wasn't hired in the first instance to teach, although I'm teaching. But I love to teach writing because I'm doing it every day and I feel it. So the learning point is this, and this is for any aspect of teaching. Find what you love and show that, because students reflect your attitude. If you're not excited about it, and most teachers aren't excited about writing, then they're not going to be as well. And that will be reflected in their grade. They will get a lower mark. All right, let's move on. Conclusion. So we've already done the introduction, the topic sentences. I read all that through, and then I write it. This isn't necessarily the most amazing conclusion, but it's the one I wrote at the time, just in a minute. So you don't spend a lot of time on the conclusion because it's not going to make or break the essay. So we don't want to lose time on the conclusion. It's only for students who are finished and have a real chance to make something interesting. So you can read that. Traveling is a very personal experience. So I've sort of this is where I summarize it slightly differently, which is best accomplished unencumbered. Now, this is not related to the cucumber, which is a vegetable. It's a cousin of the pickle. But unencumbered means that you're not burdened with other people. Unencumbered means you're free. So best unencumbered by other travelers. And what makes this conclusion is the word unencumbered. And because I've read Mario's, I'll just mention Mario's is a candidate for probably using unencumbered in the conclusion, because he seems to pick up these really interesting words quickly. I'm sure others do, but I haven't. I've only just read Mario's recently. All right, do we have any questions? Now, do we have any questions about the conclusion? And then finally, we proofread the whole essay. Now, we cannot forget this stage. This is critical. You should have 3 or 4 minutes. 2 is the bare minimum. So this is where you have to cut it off and go read it all the way through, because 300 words is a lot. It's a lot more than 250, which is the IELTS. 350 or 320 is a lot more. It's substantially more. So proofread it all the way through. And what I suggest is that you read it slightly under your breath so you can hear it. I mentioned it last week, I think, or in the IELTS webinars. Your mind goes really quickly and you can miss mistakes, but your ear is slower. it slows down the proofreading process. And if you can read it very softly under your breath, that's going to help find more of the mistakes. I have to proofread. I make many mistakes in the first draft, but I catch them in the proofread. It doesn't matter if students want to do the proofread or not, they have to do it. All right, that's it. Now, here's the thank you page. Of course, I just want to say after the homework, if you all want to stay in touch, there are two ways to do that: with email, which you're going to email me the homework. By the way, I will send homework tomorrow morning, or on YouTube, Instagram, I'm giving weekly free webinars, and I'm putting up videos that I think can potentially be very helpful. So you can find me there. So two ways to maintain this dialogue. And then, and then we have this. Now it's already 9:30, so I'm not sure. I'm a little bit nervous about writing, but I can. If all of you would like to see this, I can write. I'm going to make an excuse to say I'm not in the best shape. I've been working all day, but I'm happy to do it if we have a majority. So let's let democracy vote. Who would like to see me do this? Uh-oh. I think I'm going to have to do it. Everyone's saying yes. Okay. So here's what we'll do. I would like all of you to discuss amongst yourselves, maybe get 2 or 3 options and then vote. So the first 2 options. Oh, thank you, Veda. The first 2 or 3 options, and then you guys can vote internally, and then I will start writing. I will get my page up. So you guys can think about what you want to do. And I'll get my Word document ready. All right, I'm sorry, does anyone want to try it or not? Oh, I see. Does anyone want, okay, I'd like you guys to pick a question because we have to make it fresh, original. Does anyone have a question they want to share with the group and we'll discuss it? Find a question and then we'll do it. Okay, I'd rather have an official question from the TOEFL Task 2. Does anyone have one they can send, and then we'll vote on it? Sure, as long as it's sort of a normal type question, I don't mind. I mean, if it's unique, then it's not going to help everyone. But if it's one of the 3 types, I have no problem. Whatever you want to do, it can be different, no problem. All right, maybe get one more option so people can vote. Okay. Okay. Do we want to vote on these, or are we not happy with these? All right, let's stop. We have three options. Let's vote. So we have 1, 2, and 3. So we have the first one, the second one. The second one's Evgeny. The third one's Mario. So 1, 2, 3. Can everyone vote? Read the three and vote. And we'll just, the number wins. All right. We'll read them and vote. 1. Uh-oh. Who's going to win? Let's see. All right, it's between 1 and 3. I can see it. So we're tied. We'll need a few more. Let me just get it here. Ready? All right, it's 2 and 2. Does anyone else have an opinion on this? Okay, I think 3 wins. Is that fair to say? 3 through 3. Anyone wants 3? Okay, let's do 3. This is Marios's. Let's do it. I'm going to copy it. And now I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how to do this. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Wait. 1 second. Essay in class. Okay, then begin. All right, can you all see this? Can you all see my screen? Let me go back and see. Can you all see my screen? Okay, great. Okay, so here we go. Let me get this centered. Let me go up. I want to get as much because we're not going to have enough room. 300 is a lot, so I'm worried about length here. Let me go as high as possible. All right, we can begin. So I'm going to start. I'm going to talk through this. Let me just make sure all of you can see. Can you all see this and hear me? Okay, I'm looking now at the screen to make sure. All right, so I'm going to assume you can hear me. I'm going to talk through each stage, and you're going to know exactly how I'm thinking. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I understand the question. If I answer the wrong question, it's over. Countries are becoming increasingly similar because people are able to buy the same products anywhere in the world. Do you agree or disagree? I don't agree with that, so I'm going to make a quick decision. I don't agree. So let's make it up here. I don't agree. Okay, so thesis statement, I don't agree, I don't believe that products homogenize. Oh, this is a big word. Homogenize means to make the same, the world. All right, that's my thesis statement. So now I got to find out, that took less than a minute. Now remember, we go to the topic sentences, and that's we want to create an outline in about 5 minutes. So topic sentence 1 is people use products differently. Different uses for different purposes. Okay, that'll be my second one. I'll start doing the outline actually. Now I want to make this single space, and I want to remove this so we can differently. For different purposes. I lost my train of thought for a minute, but let's try it. All right, number 2. I'm going to use, this means topic sentence. Let's just do this. Topic sentence number 2 is, let me think, cultures are sufficiently different around the world to ensure to preclude, that's too big a word, the world becoming the same. Okay, that's not great, but the idea is there. I'm not going to worry about it. And I'll talk about local cultures and language, again, or adapt similar products. Oh, this is nice. For different purposes. So I didn't know I was going to write this until I wrote the topic sentence. Suddenly for different purposes. All right, let's do number 3, topic sentence number 3 is, let me think, countries are becoming, all right, so people use the products different, cultures are different, and I'll invert this. Products I'm going to make a separate argument. Products influence individuals, their habits, but not countries. Oh, that's it. That's going to be an interesting paragraph. Now, do you know, as I'm talking, when I say that's going to be an interesting paragraph, it's fun to write this. So if you can somehow teach your students to make this fun, oh, that's going to be an interesting paragraph to write. It is going to be an interesting paragraph to write because it's an interesting idea. And I think it works hand in hand. The more interesting the idea, the more fun it is to write. So now we've got to, now what's one idea here? What do I want? Now I'm going to fill in the structure. People use products differently for different purposes, for different, okay, for different maybe I'll just focus on different purposes, and intensity of use. That means how often you use it, intensity of use. Now, what's the original question? All right. Now, I'm going to say something as well. The same products are not actually the same. So I'm going to do something very contentious, but I'll prove it. Are not actually the same. McDonald's, they use different ingredients, for example, in McDonald's. I mean, it's the same McDonald's, but you have to adapt to the local customs. All right, so cultures are sufficiently different around the world to preclude the world becoming the same. Local customs, I have a lot to talk about there. Okay, products influence individuals and their habits, not countries. And so I'm going to look at historically. Global trade never made the world the same. So once you had global trade, the age of discovery, 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, similar products, they're still different. It's the same today. So historically as today, individuals might be the same, but not, individuals might be the same, might act similarly. Doesn't matter, but not be the same. Oh, this is going to be good. All right, so here we go. Now, that's my outline. I don't know how much time I've taken, but now I'm going to write the essay straight through. I'm going to wait on the context. I could try to write the context, but I'm not feeling the context, the first sentence of the introduction. So I'm going to flush out. I'm going to get the whole essay on paper. So I'm going to start with the topic sentence. So here's paragraph number 1. I don't believe that products homogenize the world. All right, now here's second paragraph. Firstly, people use use similar products in a different manner. Now, if I had a better computer, I would, okay, fine. I'm repeating some of myself. Then I need to give an example. For example, the iPhone. No, let's see, what's an example? For example, the phone. The phone is a prime example. Some apps, such as Facebook and Twitter, are not functionable in China and other closed countries like North Korea. In other words, but these apps are used extensively in the West. This means that while the phone itself is indeed the same, is indeed similar, the functions that we use every day, day in and day out, every day, are different. Citing one more example, Russia has largely replaced Google Maps with Yandex Maps as an app. Has already replaced the app, because I want to make it on the phone, not on the computer. I'm talking about phone, with Yandex Maps. The functionality, it is said, is friendlier. All right. I don't know how many words that is. Let's just count. 80. Great. All right. Now, next, cultures are sufficiently, I'm going to have to copy this because I'm a very slow typer. So let's go to the second. Cultures are sufficiently different around the world to preclude the world becoming the same. Now here's where I feel a triplet. Remember Mario's had that triplet and I had one earlier. Local, local customs, languages, local customs, languages, and lifestyle. Distinguish one country from the next. No product purchased can change this, can change these facts. Historically, this is understood historically. This is understood, I'm sorry, I'm cheating a little bit by going back historically. This is understood historically as well. Global commerce initiated in the 15th century. But as we began to consume similar products, watch this, such as tea and coffee, the differences from locale, I'm going to give a different now word from locale to locale, the noun. Locale were evident or abundantly clear, if I want to give some bravado to the sentence, were abundantly clear, or evident, or in evidence. We can use a lot of options here. Maybe one more sentence, because I know about the history of it. Coffee in Italy, watch this, was the preserve of the elite. I'm sorry for using this word. Preserve means it was reserved for the elite, while in Holland, in Holland, in England, it was consumed by the common man. illustrating, I want to make my point, illustrating once again that a common product, illustrating a point made, underscoring, watch this, I'm going to tie the essay together, underscoring a point raised or made, you can decide, in the previous paragraph. Namely, that products don't homogenize. Now I understand what I'm getting at here. Watch this idea. Don't homogenize. Don't unify identity, but in fact, reveal the divides, the differences. Wow, look at that sentence. I'm really excited about this. Now, let's go to the third one. All right, I'm judging by the length, it's about right. So let's go to this one. Products influence individuals. Yes. All right. Now, this is where I really start to get interesting. Having said that, products can, similar products can, now we got to be careful that we prove our thesis and we're not stating just a contrary, because I mentioned before we can't write a contrary point, but I'll make it work. Having said that, products can distinguish individuals. But this merely highlights the differences at a national level. So I'm making it work. Now, I don't know how similar products can distinguish individuals, but this merely highlights the differences at a national level. People might employ technology, people around the world use I don't know, Instagram, communicate, or WhatsApp. But what they communicate within the device is vastly different. For one, the language. Language, content, and worldviews distinguish one, wow, this is interesting, distinguish one WhatsApp chat from another. I'm giving specific examples to help prove my case. And it's likely, now a lot of people say they don't like and at the beginning, that's fine. I use it even in scholarly writing, but I understand if you don't want to do it. And it's likely, and it is likely that they, okay, language common, distinguish one chat from another. English may be a unifier, but only for around 40% of the world. Products. All right. Now, how many words do I have? 250. Okay. Now I'm going to go back now and start. Now I'm going to just say that I have a conclusion now. Products. It's the same. There is a saying. No, I don't want to use that again. I used it too many times. Similar products reveal the great differences across the globe. one only needs to look as far as their pocket. Understand this. Now it's a little bit literary, because I'm going to get out the phone from my pocket. The mobile device that nearly everyone uses is employed in a multitude of different ways. All right. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to get my introduction, and then we're going to wrap this up. So I don't believe that similar products homogeneous. Okay, so understanding. Now, now that I've written a thesis, I understand how to do a context, and my context is going to be about how we create, how similarities don't create homogeneity. So similarities don't create that. So understanding, okay. What's the question? Similarities in instances, in particulars, do not reveal similarities. Oh, I know what I'm going to write. Similarities in the micro. Micro means small. Do not reveal similarities in the macro, or do not indicate. These are two separate domains. Now my essay has a unity to it. These are two separate domains. All right, I think we have it. And thus, I don't believe, all right, let's now read this because we're running out of time. I'm just going to go through this now and catch all the errors. There are a lot of errors, especially contractions. Do not, all right. Similarities in the micro do not indicate similarities or predicate similarities in the macro. These are two separate domains. Thus, I do not believe that individual products, I'm going to underscore my point, homogenize the world. Firstly, people use similar products in a different manner. The phone is a prime example. Some apps, such as Facebook and Twitter, are no longer do not function in China and as well as other closed countries. That's fine. But these apps are used extensively in the West. This means that while the phone itself is indeed similar, the functions that we use every day in it are different. Citing one more example, Russia has largely replaced the app Google Maps with Yandex Maps. The functionality, it is said, is friendlier. The functionality as well as the language. No, that's not true. Is friendlier, indicating a product more adapted to the local culture. Wow, this is great. Cultures are sufficiently different around the world. I repeat that word, but I don't have time to change it now. Cultures, we don't want to repeat words after. Such cultures, I'll make a positive out of it. Such cultures, and we can do it, are sufficiently different around the world to preclude it, I don't want to repeat it, so I'll use a pronoun, from becoming the same. Local customs, languages, and lifestyle, that triplet, distinguish one country from the next. No product purchased can change these facts. I want to make this a little bit more beautiful can alter these facts. This is understood historically as well. Global commerce initiated in the 15th century, but as we began to consume similar products, but as the world began to, such as tea and coffee, the difference from locale the difference was abundantly clear. Coffee in Italy was the preserve of the elite. I might want to keep this lowercase to be safe if we get pernickety judges or readers. While in Holland and in England, it was consumed by the common man, underscoring a point raised in the previous paragraph. Namely, that products do not unify identity, but in fact reveal their differences. The differences. Having said that, similar products can distinguish individuals, but this merely highlights the differences at a national level. I would change differences if I have time, depending on at the end, because I mentioned it twice. People around the world use Instagram or WhatsApp to communicate, but what they communicate with the device is vastly different. I use it again. Language, content, and worldviews distinguish one WhatsApp chat from another. English may be a unifier, but only for around 40% of the world. Similar products reveal the great differences around the world, across the globe, around the world, if we want to say. I haven't said this yet, maybe. Around, just to make it different. One only needs to look as far as their pocket to understand this. The mobile device that nearly everyone uses is employed in a multitude of different ways. Now, I use differently a lot. And if I had a minute to go, then I would change a few of these vastly. I'm drawing a blank. I have to admit I'm a bit tired. All right, so let's stop. All right, let's stop this. Can you all see that? Okay. Let's talk about this. Those who are still awake, I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I'll send that tomorrow with the homework. Thank you. Thank you, Maris. So have we learned, let's just for a minute, I know it's a really long one, in the last few minutes, so what, maybe verbalize, it'll help me, what was especially helpful in this exercise. Can you maybe write something down, what was helpful that I did here, what you learned or what was helpful? Can all of you maybe contribute? I'd really like to hear your opinion on whether this is, what exactly is helpful about this exercise. Maybe nothing's helpful, I don't know. I hope something is. I don't know if everyone's still here. Let's see. Yeah, thank you, Maurice. I did linking. I linked the ideas. We didn't talk about linking ideas. I love to talk about it. We didn't because I felt we didn't have enough time. But of course, it's interesting to link them. You have to link them. I link them in unorthodox ways, but you can do firstly, secondly, thirdly. That's pretty standard. Oh, great, Oksana. Thank you for that. Oh, thank you. That's really nice. I'm going to copy these down because I want to make a note so I can. The order, the structure, the way to build on ideas, the way. Okay, great. You managed to develop the topics of products. I think it would be. I find it difficult. So many examples. Yeah, there were. I like watching how you come up with new ideas. Great. Oh, that's really helpful to hear this. Well, I tried to. In fact, what I did in the conclusion is I underscored a main point, like the big conclusion, in a slightly different way. Is it? I would focus more on consumer products. That's interesting. In the thick of the moment, I just wrote what came to mind. And this is the thing. Can't really analyze what's better or worse with examples. You just have to go with it. The phone came to my mind because it's right next to me, so I just used it. Oh, that's really nice, Anna. I hope so as well. Please keep in touch with me either on Instagram or with email. It was interesting to watch. Good. No, you don't need to summarize. Well, I summarized it sort of in the conclusion, the main idea. I summarized it. I just taught IELTS writing, Oksana, 2 weeks ago. You mean normally or for special webinars? But yeah, I will do another one. Wonderful story. Oh, thank you, Evgeny. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Where can I find webinars? I think on Profi. The IELTS webinars I just did, you can buy them on Profi. They're being sold. I don't know what the price is actually, but you ask Natasha. She's here. She has them. And I did both. I did two. You can buy one or the other. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Elena. Is there? It's not a requirement. If you're writing it, we know you think about it. Oh, great. Okay, Marius. Great. It's my pleasure. Marius, you're really gifted. I know the others are as well, but I just remember Marius's and Oksana, I remember, has a very clean style. I love this. Can we buy access to the IELTS? Yes, you can. I think you can contact Natasha. She's the one who sends out all the information. Ask. Both of them are recorded and for sale. Can you recommend websites which can be useful? I'm a little bit nervous about, okay, send me an email. I have no problem. I haven't found many I like, and I found a lot that are bad is the problem. So I generally have my own, but I know IELTS, there's more of an option. You can find better sort of websites. In TOEFL, not as much. But Oksana, if you write me, anyone who has specific questions, if you email me, I will definitely write you back. Yeah, I don't know of a famous TOEFL. I mean, I'm not very famous though, so you can't count me. Yeah, IELTS. I know IELTS Liz. She has really great examples that you can't copy and paste in for your students. You know, why don't you, these specific questions, can you send an email? These are really good, but maybe we'll do emails. Everyone, thank you all for a really, really great 2 weeks, and I really appreciate it, and I hope to have contact again. I'm going to do more seminars for IELTS and TOEFL next year, maybe writing or reading or listening or speaking. Reading, I think, particular. But so maybe we'll have a chance to meet again. But thank you all very, very much. I'm actually going to copy this chat because I want to read your comments. They're going to be really helpful. Let's see if I can do it here. Great. I think I can get a copy of it as well. Okay, great. I have it. All right, everybody. Have a good evening. Yes, thank you.